Hello, guys.
Hi everyone.
Hi, everyone. And
Hey everyone.
welcome to the fourth day of Web Dev Bootcamp. And I'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Hridesh Bhagat. And
And I'm Arnav. I hope you remember me from the last session, I guess
yeah,
yesterday.
and we do know about you guys were asking about more queries about back end because you already know how front end works and how you can build it, but now you want to like attach it and link it with your back end and make it work seamlessly. So we are here with another session and we have a very special guest with us. I don't know, you want to
Yeah.
go ahead and introduce him?
Yeah. Papa, he's really an amazing guy. He's our very own senior. His name is Devayan Ganguly. I call him Devayan always. And he's I would say he's super expert in Node and Express, MongoDB, the whole backend. I can say he's the god of backend for me, right? So he's something like that. So he's really an amazing guy, and I really want to thank Devayanda to be as a to guide you in this whole session, right? And since it's a day 4, so let me tell you how we are going to proceed in this session. So today is the day 4. So tomorrow we will have a buffer day, a kind of so where you guys will. Since as you know we are going to have a brainstorming session where you guys will be coming up with your own ideas, right?
Your own project ideas, right?
Yeah, own project ideas, and where they will be telling so we will be have an open discussion about it in Zoom. So stay tuned for that. And to now Devanda will give you a a completely
Descriptive.
descriptive way of like a backend, how to use backend, how to connect backend with front end and all those stuffs, right? How to connect it with database as well.
Yeah. Just a quick heads up, if you guys can hear us clearly and Devanda, welcome to our show. Can you just check for your mic and everything?
Yeah, I think I'm audible, right?
Yeah, so we'll just wait for a quick heads up from our audience, and when they are ready, then we can begin. All right.
Yeah.
And just for a quick show, we do have a few working people with us here. Yeah, I hope you guys remember Deeptendu from the first session, right? And we also have another member working out with here. He's Aritro, and we'll be having more sessions with us. And we are right here at IDC Lab. Okay, you guys are working before having this entire session, so just we are passing time so that you guys can confirm and you guys can like clarify us whether you can hear us and everything.
Okay.
Just that. Okay, so I guess you guys can hear me, and let's go forward with the session. So
Yeah.
Devanda, over to you. Just a quick question. Like, when did you start backend or anything?
Yeah, so I started backend like when I just started my second year. So
Hmm.
I was very much into programming. I was doing code chef and all those things. So I didn't know like how to implement things in the real world, right? So as a lot of new guys are intrigued about. And then what I did was like I started searching for random stuff like what to do, what's next. Was my question. Things can't end just at
I
like code
guess your
chef.
voice is a
Yeah.
little bit like muffled. Can you just speak up a bit, Devanda?
Uh, you want me to yeah, this is fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
pretty
good.
good.
Okay. So yeah, actually what happens is like there is an auto tuner in my computer. I think I think this is fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
One sec.
No, no,
I
the earlier one was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, actually like what happens is my voice gets auto tuned. So let me just like switch it up. Uh, one second.
This one is better. This one is better. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead, Devanda.
yeah. Yeah. So I was intrigued about what's next, and yeah, that led me to start exploring fields. Like I started exploring how to like code on Arduino and all those things. Then I tried with front end, and then when I got my first internship, it was not my first internship, but it was like my first official internship, and I started really getting into what is done at places and like how do they manage things and
And that's
what is
really great. And can you just specify like what are some of the at present what are some of the languages that are really important for backend?
yeah. So in terms of backend, a very new language is getting a lot of traction nowadays. That's Golang, and apart from that, like the two major languages used are like Node.js and Python. like those two have like wherever I've done it, like in most startups, they prefer Python or Node.js, and in like a bit stable companies, they prefer Java. Right. So Java is like uh, the mother, right? Like companies like Amazon and all those
Yeah.
companies, they use Java, but it takes a lot of time to actually code and like do stuff. So yeah, so people have shifted to more simplistic and like faster alternatives. That's Python and Node.js. That gives a rapid development. Like what to say? They give us a rapid uh, cycle in terms of development.
And which language are we gonna learn today?
So today we are going to do with Node.js because I hope everyone is mostly familiar with JavaScript and stuff. So the reason behind Node.js came into play is because some front-end developers wanted to write backend, and then they started like, yeah, we need the same language for the backend as well. Because it's when you work on large-scale projects, it becomes very difficult for people to actually learn a lot of projects, right? Like learn a lot of languages. So what they decided is let's get JavaScript into backend as well and start development, and that's where Node.js came into play. And I hope it's a very popular language, and yeah, it has
And
got a
what
big
what
community.
do you think? Like, since it's a web dev bootcamp, I'll ask a very weird yet very like probable question. Like, what do you think is much more in demand right now, and which is more important, front end or back end? Which one should people give more focus on?
So what I would actually say is like a web application cannot run with just one thing. Right, it needs both front end and back end. It needs database to like complete it. So in terms of startups prefer to have uh, like a full stack guy. Okay, because they would obviously want someone who has the knowledge of both the things. And in terms of like if you are applying for like middle sized companies, I think front end and back end both are very important, and you can go with either of them. But when you're talking about front end, the thing is you need to know about the specific technologies like React or Angular or whatever they are using. But backend doesn't really have limits. So there are like different kinds of databases, different kinds of queues, and there are like a lot of tools, right? So backend is very easy to start with. I would say that's because it's more of writing functions. But in terms of the vastness of the tools and like how to use them, backend has a lot of depth to it. But in terms of front end, I would say front end is more of like you need quite a bit of skill to actually get started. But then once you get started, it's pretty simple to go along with it.
Okay.
Well, we'll let you take on to and talk to the audience and continue with your session. We'll not
Yep.
take much of your time. So, audience, we give Devanda to you, and you can ask any questions in the chat box, and we'll be happy to if we can answer all of those questions.
Yep.
So, over to you, Devanda.
Over to you, Dada.
Yeah, yeah.
All the best.
uh yeah, so let me share my screen. I think uh,
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
it's visible, right? It's visible, right?
Yeah,
Yes, da. It's
it is.
perfectly visible.
Yeah.
Also, just a quick
So
question: are we gonna have a hands-on session today at the very end?
yeah, I hope we'll have one. Okay, so I have
Well.
planned a small hands-on today.
Mhm.
Let's see.
Mhm.
If time permits, we'll obviously have one. Okay?
So the audience have something to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so yeah, the session is actually on building the web, and since you have already started with front end, we'll be actually deep diving into back end with Node.js today. So talking about me, I'm Devan Ganguly. I'm the co-founder of Mentro, and I work as an SD at Trell. I'm also the web dev lead at IDC. I hope I can give some insights from my perspective and like my knowledge to you guys today. Let's move to the slide. So what is web? No, not all these. Web is not all these. So Well, let's talk about what is a website. Okay, so a website is basically a full stack application which has a front end and a back end. Now, you guys, I think, have a bit of exposure about what a front end is and how to build UI, but the business logic that runs in the front end works and is coded in the back end to keep things secure. So let's get into like basic differences of what is a website and like what is a front end and what is a back end. Now let's first talk about what is web and why it is called web. It's called web because it's a network of computers, as we know, and a web is basically when a few computers connect with a network and they can communicate with each other. So, what led to the existence of a website? So, a website is something which actually runs and is served from one computer to all its clients, right? So if you want to access a website, you need a machine where you can actually open it and you can make requests or click on buttons and do stuff, right? So the part of the website where you click on buttons and you get a response, that is called the front end of the website, and the back end is the one which is actually running on the other side of the things, which you probably don't know, but the website is doing it on its back. So a very common architecture of a website is like it's a client server architecture. So what is a client server architecture? Um so the client actually runs on your computer. You have access to almost everything over here. For example, uh, if I talk about this site, like this is Google Docs, this is Google Slides. So this slide has a front end. The front end is these buttons, and they do certain things when I click on them. And the back end is actually what is processing it out. So, for example, when I am writing some code and I'm saving it out, it's it's saving up an impression of it in your in your Google Drive, right? So that is what's happening in the back end, and you don't have much access to what is being done, what they are processing and doing. You don't have much access to it, but you can obviously anytime format, insert, view, edit, and whatever. So this is basically the front end of a website, and the back end is mainly that's running on like Google's computers, right? So that is, I think, will give you a brief of what is front end and back end. Now, why do websites have front end and back end? Let's talk about it. Clients have limited power. Yeah. So, for example, Facebook, when you open Facebook, it does a lot of stuff. It connects you with people, it runs a lot of machine learning algorithms, but you have a phone running it, right? So, your phone doesn't have a lot of power. What you need is uh, what you need is a powerful machine to learn all those algorithms. But if I talk about your phone, it's pretty small. It has pretty less power in terms of the server. So uh, actually, when Facebook will probably run a bigger algorithm, probably it on the first day it runs a smaller algorithm, and it fits in your phone, right? So it works, but on the next day when there's a bigger algorithm running and Facebook doesn't have access to your phone and its hardware, right? So what will happen is Facebook won't work properly. So to make it work properly, it needs a few things to run in its servers and provide the data, right? So that is where servers come into play. Servers do the heavy lifting for us, and mobile phones or like the clients or like our computers, which are pretty less powerful in compared to what's going there in the servers of the giants, is like for us to see things happen. So it's magic. In terms of structure, like most applications need to sync with different kinds of data as well, right? So your friend's birthday next week will decide upon that what notification you will get this week, right? So for example, when you are actually like syncing up or like sending things to your friends, they go through a server. The reason behind that is like the server needs to process a lot of things in between and needs to understand what are your in terms of recommendation engines as well. The servers need to understand like what are the things that are important and what does it need actually to serve you more and better content, right? So applications do actually need to sync with different kinds of services to provide you your experience, the experience you get. If I talk about Instagram or TikTok or whatever, these companies, what they do is they also run a lot of heavy algorithms on their backend. But in terms of their front end, they only show videos. They don't allow you too much, allow you to do a lot of search and all those things. They just keep feeding you videos, and depending on your interaction with the services, they provide you more and more videos and content. But that cannot happen on the front end because it's of course it's limited by power and efficiency and like a lot of other things. And then the next thing is clients are less secure. So whatever running in your client, that is in your front end, is pretty much visible to you, right? As a hacker, I can actually access everything running on your machine, right? So if there is a code running in your machine that is running on your web browser, I can check every part of it. And Chrome actually, even in Chrome, we get access to a lot of great tools which we can actually explore. For example, if I get into a website, example.com, let me go from here. So if I go to this website, I can just inspect the website and I get the elements. I get a console to actually write code. So I can write, so I can write whatever. There are the sources, which is example.com is providing me. So example.com is just this page. It doesn't have a lot of things. There's the network calls that example.com is doing, and we have a lot of things which we can look upon when we are actually going to a website. And every part of a website that is running in the front end is basically accessible to everyone who is actually using the computer. So that is there that clients are pretty less secure. So we need a backend to actually secure our keys. For example, if you are connecting to a database and if you have your ID and password and everything on your front end, a person might spoof in and he might grab your uh, data, like he might grab your ID and password of the database and connect and run queries himself. So we would obviously like that. So that is why we connect every secure thing to a backend and not the front end. Yeah, and then last but yeah, I think this one just for was just for symmetry because it was looking bad with three, right? Yeah, 3 points. Okay, so let's get back to then if we're talking about front end and back end, we had a lot of talk about like this is front end, this is back end. So how do they communicate? They communicate using different kind of network protocols. Network protocols are essentially HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, FTPS, and so much. There are a lot of network protocols which defines the rules of how to actually transfer data from front end and back end. They communicate via different protocols through APIs, which are usually REST. So we would be actually looking into REST APIs, and yeah, that is how they communicate. Uh, yeah. So after that, there's a very big question. Right? People ask, what is the difference between an API and a protocol? So yeah, they aren't in a war. Like, of course, like API versus protocol doesn't make a lot of sense because APIs have their work and protocols have their work and definition. Right? They are two separate entities. So what protocols are? Protocols are certain rules and methods of communication. Um some of the great people have actually decided on, like how to actually transfer data from one computer to another. Um and they actually connect through ports, and there are a lot more than like lot more to that. But the main thing is, protocols are basically certain rules that actually connect and help computers communicate. And then what are APIs? APIs are basically written by developers. API means application programming interface. So what are APIs? They are basically functions. Okay. So if I talk about, you have a function to square a number, right? You have a function to square a number, but your machine is not capable of squaring a number. Then what will you do? Want to square a number? um, you want to give it an input 10 and you want to get an output of 100, but your machine doesn't have the power to square a number. So what you will basically do, you will basically call the function that squares the number, but that is lying in some other machine, right? So because your machine cannot do it, you will actually ask some other machine to square it. Now how will that machine actually accept data from you and will send you the data back? That machine will actually put an API layer over it, will run a server and make an API for that, so that you can call the function that is in the other machine, and then you can get your data. So APIs are pretty simple. A lot of people get confused about what is an API. API is actually something which can help you run a function that is in some other machine, that can help you access a function that is in some other machine. So as I gave you an example, like squaring things up. So do you guys have any doubts? Okay, by the way, like I think I can't communicate, but yeah, that's fine. um, okay, so that is like the basic difference between an API and a protocol. Next is why learn Node.js. So Node.js allows you to write server-side apps in JavaScript, moving it from the backend and taking moving it from the front end and taking it way to the backend. So why is Node.js important? So as I said in the beginning of the session, right, that Node.js allows us to actually write backend code in JavaScript. Now a bunch of developers, they were like pretty upset about why actually why actually learn so many languages when you can do everything in one. You are already writing a lot of front end code and logic in Node.js, right? So why do we actually need a separate programming language to learn and write the backend code? So uh, the clever people out there, they figured out, okay, let's make something out of it, and like let's not just discuss why do we do what. Let's take JavaScript to the backend. That got the introduction to JavaScript in backend in the form of Node.js. So what is Node.js? Yeah, there's a fact that in today's world, 40% of the web is in JavaScript. But yeah, if I talk about front end is called the tip of the iceberg, which actually covers around 10 to 15% of the web. Rest is backend, right? So how is JavaScript 40% of the web today? Because of course, like it has moved forward from front end, and it has got back to the back in the form of Node.js. So let's move towards how. So Node.js, yeah. So as I said, like with the introduction to Node.js, it has found its way in the servers, and like it has become a lot easier for front end developers to write code for the backend, right? The front end developers don't need to worry about learning new languages and their structure and their difficulties before like start actually making their full stack applications. So that is why like it has become a very popular framework and language for It has become a very popular language for beginners, and also uh, like quite a lot of startups to actually start writing in Node.js, because that makes things a lot efficient in terms of you need to learn less things to write code, and uh, you do actually get a lot of features which you have already uh, learned in while learning the front end. Yeah. So so what is Node? Node is basically a runtime environment built upon the Chrome V8 engine. What is all this? Um, yeah. So, what is a runtime environment built upon Chrome V8 engine? Now, what happens is, like, everything running on the front end, they sorry. So, what happens is everything running on the front end, they need a compiler, right? So, for example, when we are running JavaScript on the front end, or like JavaScript is not compiled, but it needs an engine, right? So when JavaScript is actually written in the front end, and every web browser is actually doing certain tasks depending upon what JavaScript files you provide to the front end, right? So these tasks are actually uh, when a Node.js code is written, these tasks are actually held upon, or for example interpreted, right? When there is a language written, the computer needs to understand that, right? So, and what an engine does, for example the Chrome V8 engine, that actually takes the JavaScript written, and it converts and compiles it to what it understands, and it runs a certain tasks, right? So that is what is Node. Node is basically when we are taking that engine from the web browser, or yeah, web browser, and getting it running in our machine, in our own machine. So I'll give you an example, right? So
Devanda,
yeah.
yeah, there is a question in the chat box. I'll just
Mhm.
display it.
Okay.
Girish is asking that if you can talk about what is the technology that Mentro uses as its backend.
Yeah, so even at backend, Mentor uses Node.js to run and like develop servers. It's because the same reason that it's pretty fast. Like Node.js, the development cycle is pretty fast. Okay. Um, yeah, I'll get back to Mentor in a bit as well. Okay.
Okay,
So
sure, sure.
yeah. Um, okay. So in terms of that, like Node.js can very easily be actually run into your computer if you have like downloaded and installed it. You just write Node and you get access to a terminal, which will actually give you a way to actually run JavaScript on your computer. As I said, Node is actually built upon the Chrome V8 engine, which is basically uh, an engine of web browser, getting it compiled and like getting it structured so that you can actually use that engine for the backend and your computer independently, right? There are like Chrome has a V8 engine, and it was an old engine, but nowadays like Chrome has an engine called Blink, and like there are other engines as well, like the Gecko engine for Firefox and Presto engine for Opera and all those things. So the node is actually built upon the Chrome V8 engine. Okay. I think like we missed the last section. Okay, so yeah, of course, as Linus Torvalds says, talk is cheap. Show me the code. Let's get to code. Let's write some code and understand what is to be done to actually get your own node server running, and like how to do it. My screen is visible, right?
Yes, Devanda, your screen is visible.
Yeah, I think yeah. Okay,
Everyone,
so
please write down in the comments if Devanda's screen is visible. Just a simple yes will suffice.
yeah. You just let me know once it's ready, right?
Yes, yes, it's visible. You're good to go.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope you guys have installed Node and npm, right? uh, can you please confirm if they have done it, or like I should start from there?
Yes, if you guys have installed Node or npm in your local machine and it is already set up, can you guys please confirm it in the chat box? Guys, please confirm in the chat box so that we can continue it. Okay, we have got one yes, and please. Okay, and there is a no.
Okay, so let's start off with how to install Node. It's pretty
Yeah,
simple
I think
how
that
to
is
install
better.
Node. Yeah, I think like you go to the website nodejs.org and you'll get it like download. For me, it's Linux, so I did a download for Linux. If you have your Windows, you can just download for Windows and you are good to go. Okay, so yeah. Now, what I'll do today is I'll write some code, and for you to like have access to it, I'll like create a GitHub repository so that, or like, I'm sorry, I'll create a GitHub repository, um, and like keep pushing code into it. So I'll just name the repository as Node.js. So this is the repository. I'll send you the link soon. Yeah, it's of course public readme. I'll add node. I'll create a repository. Now what I'll do is I'll clone this one. Yeah, and I'll use actually this repository to actually store the code which I'll be writing today. So it's intro to node. I'll open this. So my repository has a gitignore and a readme file as usual. So I'll open the terminal and I'll start with actually initializing a npm package, or like initializing a folder with npm for node. So what I'll do is like simply npm init, and I'll do a dash y to like actually accept whatever they are saying. And this gives me a package.json to work with. The package.json has a name, that is the name of the folder, a version, a description, the main index file, the repository, and like quite a few other things. Now, this package.json will actually help you manage the dependencies of Node and dependencies of whatever you are writing for JavaScript. Node npm is a package manager for Node. So, do you guys have an idea about what a package manager is?
Guys, a quick confirmation in the chat box, please.
Any confirmation?
Okay, one person has answered with a no.
Mhm.
Okay, some more people, could you please confirm whether it is a yes or a no? Then we can continue on.
So what is a package manager, right? Is the question.
That is the question. Okay, some of the people are saying no. So yeah, I think we you should tell them what is a package manager.
Yeah. So basically, what a package manager is, a package manager helps you handle dependencies of a project. Python has a package manager named pip. JavaScript has a package manager named Node, named Npm. So what this Npm package manager will do, this will maintain a package.json file, and once I start coding, you will also see that it will start maintaining a package lock.json file, which will actually track the dependencies of the project. So when you're writing a project, you will actually need to track or like install code written by some other people. You can't write all the code alone. So you need other people's help as well. So how do you take the help and you maintain that that what code you have taken and how much do you need, what is the version of the code you have taken? All those things are actually maintained by a package manager. Sorry. So a package manager actually maintains all the code you actually import and like the external packages you download. So let's talk about this npm package manager. This npm package manager manages packages using this package.json file. So now if you go here, you will check that there are like quite a few things. There are scripts, repository, and keywords and whatever. But this will actually start holding your packages once we start installing it. Okay, so yeah, let's. I think yeah. Okay, so let's install the first package. Okay, so because we are actually using Node, we'll need something called Express, which will actually allow us to write servers, like write servers. Yeah. So let's do an npm I, which means install, and we install Express. And so Express is installed. So once Express is installed, you will see it in the dependencies, right? You will see that Express has been added to your dependency, and we are using Express version 4.17.1. So that is what a package manager will do. Every time you install a dependency, it will get added to your dependencies. So next time when I actually share you the code, you can just do an npm install, and it will install all the packages which you need for your machine. So I'll go to git ignore as well. I'll just add package lock as ignore. I'll also ignore, yeah. I'll ignore package lock.json and node modules. I think node modules is already added. Yeah. So we have got Express. Now what's next? Um, so we will also need something called nodemon to actually run the server, run it as a server, and don't need to restart it over and over again as a development server. So I'll do an npm install nodemon, but I'll install it as a dev dependency. What is a dev dependency? A dev dependency is a dependency that doesn't need you to install things while deploying in a server. So when I'll be actually deploying all these things in a server, I don't need to actually install nodemon. I can just go with all these dependencies and not use the dev dependency. So nodemon got added to your dev dependencies. and we are actually good to go. So let's start writing a server. So as I discussed before, what is a server? Server is basically um, like a server is basically a function running in someone else's computer. The server is not a big function. It's like what we do using an API is like we call a function that is actually running in someone else's machine. Right? So to actually start, let's start with an SRC file. We'll be writing all our source code in this SRC file. And what we'll be doing is we'll be writing simple functions. Okay, let's write few simple functions and let's see how to actually get them converted into a server. So I'll start with adding a file called index.js, and what I'll do is uh, I'll start writing a function. So before writing a function, let's like fire up a simple server. What that will do is like print a hello world. Uh, so what I'll do is like I'll import express. Now this is how you import dependencies. Express, as I said, is a framework for actually running servers, right? So why do we need Express? Because we don't need to, so that we don't need to actually care about like uh, writing and like actually coding out a very server on its code. We can already use the pre-written code written in the Express library and do all the stuff. So I'll also use a prettier file. I'll also need a prettier to format my code. So it will be a prettier RC. These will actually have the coding styles which I want. So I will actually want a tab width of 4. So these are actually for keeping your code clean and let them look beautiful when someone else is looking at it. I'll use semi equals false because I don't want semicolons at the end of my code, at the end of the lines. And what I'll do more is like I'll do a bracket spacing. I'll do a bracket spacing. That means everything inside brackets will have some space before and after the bracket. I'll also keep um, single quote as false because I want everything as in double quotes. And I'll also do arrow parentheses avoid. So this is a specific for ES6. I hope like you guys have got some exposure to ES6, and ES6 has like arrow functions. So that is that. So I'll also add a new file called the prettier ignore. I think it's just prettier ignore or prettier ignore. It's probably just prettier ignore. And I'll write all the files which I want to ignore to for prettier to actually check and run. So I'll ignore package.json. I'll ignore package log.json. I think that's it for the setup. Now let's start firing up a very basic server. So we have installed Express and we will be using Express to actually write our own server. So let's start off with actually getting Express. So we import it over here like this. We do const express equals require express. So this express variable has now is declared, but it's not it. But this express variable has is a alias of like the core express library. Now we can like do this. So now what we'll do is we'll create an app. We'll create an app. Uh, with express, and we'll actually like make it listen to a port on your computer. So let's listen to 8080, which is one of my favorite ports, and write an ES6 arrow function, which will actually get called when the server starts running. So we'll do a console log. Oh, localhost 8080 for us to actually directly go into the server. Now let's see if the server runs. I'll do okay. So one more thing probably I need to do is add a script. So what is a script? Script basically runs when you want to run something with npm. So first of all, I'll want to add a script called server or serve or start. Let us start with start. So npm run start will actually do nodemon and src slash index. Now let's run the server. There's some error. Missing script start. Okay, I didn't save it probably. So we added it to the script. Now let's start. So we have got our server ready. This is a server, but it's not connected because it doesn't have a route. So we need to actually create a route for the server to function. Let's add a route that prints out or like gives a reply of hello world. Okay. So we do app.get because it's a get request. Now there are different kinds of requests: a get request, post request, put request, delete request, and whatever. There are a lot more. We'll we'll do a get request. The function will have a request and a response, and yeah. So what this route will actually do, it will respond with hello world. So we'll do response dot json, and we'll do something like hello world. We'll send a JSON response with, for example, response hello world. I need to have it in the JSON. So what is a JSON? JSON is basically a map which uh, like a JavaScript map which gets converted into a structured storage file. So JSON is something JSON is kind of a file which actually allows you to store data. It can be also used as a request and a response thing. So as you send text files, as you can send like all kinds of files, you can also send JSONs as response. So let's see what we get when we get to localhost and we run it. We need to restart the server once. Uh, mm, mhm, yeah. Hmm. Okay. Mm, there is some issue which I am not being able to figure out. Uh, let's check it out. Okay. Yeah. It's because HTTP and HTTPS. So wanted to connect to an HTTPS request, but HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and HTTPS is Secure Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now, my computer doesn't allow a secure hypertext transfer protocol because I don't have an SSH tunnel and all those things. There are a lot of intricacies to it, but I don't have an HTTPS connection, so it will be just an HTTP connection. So that is why it was not finding the route. Now, since I have done it HTTP, let's go back and connect. I think it will do now. So let's go to HTTP. Yeah. So I got a response of hello world, right? So this is the basic route. Now if I go to write as test, let's see what response I get. I don't get a response. Says cannot get because my route is slash test this URL localhost port 8080 slash test. So it can't get a normal route. I just need to write slash test to actually access the data. So that is like how to actually fire up a simple route and start a very basic server. I'll be pushing it to the GitHub. So I'll do a git add.
Hello, Devanda.
Yeah,
Yes, we have a question in the chat box.
yeah.
Shaborno is asking, and I quote, "Sir, why are you using slash sign /sign in app.get function? What it means here?"
Okay. So um, when we are talking about a server, uh, there this is called a route. So when we are adding a route to a server, that route can actually do some functions. As I said, right, that in the beginning, uh, what we do through an API, we call a function that is in a some someone else's server, right? We call something that is in someone else's server. Now, when you actually want to call that is something in someone else's server, you cannot call it by a name, right? So this slash basically gives a path or actually a name to the function, right? So this is basically the name of the function. When I give a slash get, so there are a few things like you can make a get request, you can make a post request. I think like they have a bit more detailed about they should be gone into a bit more details to understand what a get request is and what is a post request. But I can say like these are kind of requests which you can actually learn from the internet. But what this slash is, this slash is actually the name of your function. So as I said, like it is a function, you give it some input and you get some output, right? So I'll get into some time, like I'll get get into this. So this slash is basically the name of the function. So if I name this function as test, what will happen is, okay, let me just fire up the server once more. So when I name this as test, my function name is localhost localhost 8080 slash test. Now, if I want to call this function, I need to or like actually request to this route. This is called a route, and I need to request to this test route to get the output. Because if you want to call a function, you need to know its name, right? So this you can think of it as the name of the function which you will be calling, and you will getting an output. Right? Is it clear?
Quick confirmation if the answer is clear. Devana, I think it is more than clear. I think you are good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this string is basically the name of the function. You can think of it like that. I think we can proceed. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So as we have done this hello world thing, let me just push it back to GitHub so that you guys can access it. Yeah. Mm, okay. So I think where's the repository? I hope it got updated with all these things. Yeah. So where do I actually send it? Let me just put the comments. I don't think I've accessed the comments. Uh, okay, Shantan, I'm sending it to you. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sending you
sure.
the
Please send
I'm
it to
sending
me.
you
I
the
will.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
will
I'll send you
share it in
I'll
the
send it to
comments.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I'm sending it to you. Just give me 5 minutes. They can follow along with that.
Of course. And in the meanwhile, if there are any questions regarding whatever has been taught till now, please do ask in the comment section. Devanga, have you sent it to me?
Yeah, once. Um,
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. Okay, I have got it.
you've got it right.
Yes, I have got it.
Yeah. Okay. So that is actually it. And anyone has any questions to follow along?
No, not yet. If anyone has any question, I will
Yeah, please
revert back to you.
prompt and let me know. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Please continue. Thank you.
Okay, so once we have got this, now of course we are not going to write all the routes on a single page, right? We are not going to route like the write or everything in a single page. So we need to actually modularize it, right? So Express provides you routes to actually modularize code. So what do is you use routes. So I'll actually create a folder which will actually contain the routes. Okay. So I'll create a folder called tasks. Let's let's start with task one .js. Sorry. Now, uh, yeah, of course. Now what I'll do is like I'll start writing a task. So for this task, I need to have a router, right? So I'll have a router. Oh, I think I messed up the file name. So I'll need to have a router, and that is what we get in Express itself. So, but over here, what we did was we imported the full module, right? So, router is basically a part of Express. So, we just do a this. And I think you have got to know about this while learning about a bit of ES6, right? Uh, so we do this router, and then we set up a router. So this router will basically be a sub server to my original server, which will be running a lot of things, which we'll see now. And I'll do a module.export. I'll do a module.export and I'll export the router. So this will be the router for my task one. Now how to integrate it in the app? I'll import this. I'll import the router in the app. So const task one, and I'll require this task one file, right? So this will be dot slash tasks slash task one. So as soon as I get the task one, I'll do an app.use, and I'll use the router for task one. I'll make it task one and I'll assign it a router of task one. So all the functions or all the routes in task one will be under this thing, under this task one. So let's get back to the router and write a hello world function over here as well, or like a router one over here as well. So how do I write it? I do the same thing. I do router.get. I name the route as one because who cares? I'll do a request. I'll take a response. This is a JavaScript arrow function. And what I'll do is I'll just return a response. Response.json, and I'll just want to name it as as task one, and I'll name the router as router one, or just name the router one and task as one. I think that would be better. And yeah, that's it. Right. So when I actually make a get request to this function, so how do I make a get request to this function? I know it's under app.use task one, and this task one itself also has a function that is /1. So how do I actually request it? I will do a task one slash one. So okay, so my server is not running. I need to run my server. So that is how I make a call. I do task one slash one because I included all the routes in task one in under this task one route, and then I started this /1. That is the first route of task one. So this will be the path. Anyone has any doubt? Anyone has any doubt?
Please mention it in the chat box if anyone has any doubts.
Yeah. Please wait for 1 second. I'm just getting back.
Yeah, sure. We will definitely wait for 1 minute. If you have any kind of doubts till whatever Devanda has taught until now, just shower it in the comments section.
Yeah, please. Please let me know about any doubts if you guys have.
We'll just wait for 1-2 minutes and then
Yeah.
we'll continue. And if you have no doubts, then mention that also.
Yeah, what is a request and a response? So so a request is, as I said, like a function has two parts, right? A function takes a parameter for request, and a function gives an output, right? So a request is basically the input that you will be able to give it to the function, and the response is basically uh, the response which the function will provide back. So over here, the function did not have any parameter, right? So you just provided it one. We'll be getting back very soon on how to actually provide variables into this function to actually help it work, right? But for now, it is just giving me an output without taking an input. So this is the output, which is the response, which I'm sending it through response.json. I'm making a JSON response, and we'll be back with like how to actually give this function an input and actually get an output with the help of an input. Is it clear?
Shubroto Rokshit, please mention if it is clear. And if anyone else has any other queries, please do ask. Okay. Does anyone else have any other doubts?
Um, yeah.
I think
All right.
not,
We'll continue.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep shouting in the doubts and Devanda will keep on answering it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Okay.
Devanda, you can
So
continue on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's continue. So we got our first router, right? So let's start with the second one. Let's start with the second one. So let's make a new router, router 2. What this router will do, this router will actually, this router will actually take an input and give us an output. Right. So how will this take an input? Let's see. Uh, we'll take const. We'll do a const num, and what it will do is it will take request dot params, request dot query. So we gave this function an input through query parameter. Now, how do we do this? And like, let's see how we get it. So we get number. We also want to print the number. So now we have the second. Now we have the second route, that is second function. Let's give it function two. And okay, so I forgot to name it as task one, and this is router two, right? So this is task one and router two. So this is giving us task one and router two. But now it can give us more. Let's give it an input. So how do we give it an input? We give a question mark at the end, and it is asking for a num. So let's give a num equals 20, and let's see what it gives us. So it gives us number equals 20, right? So task one, router two, takes an input and gives us the same thing as output, returns us the same thing as output. Uh, we did we did it over here, right? We are returning this num. Uh, so someone is asking like, what is the request and response? So with the help of request, we are actually getting the input, and with the help of response, we are providing the output, right? So let's get one step ahead, and let's do a number three. Now what we'll do, we'll actually get this number, and we will actually um, convert it into, like, now when we get this output, this number is given as 20 as a string, right? So it doesn't know yet that it is a number or a string. It's still a string. Let's actually convert it into a number and do it. So num equals, because we have already declared const num, we can't do it. So let us do let num. So let num equals, uh, so we do parse int. So we do a parse int num. And now what will happen is, once we get the number, it will convert into a number and give an output. So let's check what router 3 gives us now. So see, router 3 gives us a number 20. It gives us an output in the form of a number. Right? So these are also certain outputs which I have mentioned and kept to make sure that we actually have it. So we understand this is the route. So this is router 3. We need to rename it. So we have the router 3. Now let's get one more step ahead. Let's make a router 4. What the router 4 will do, it will accept the number and it will do what? It will square it up. It will square and send out a full life cycle of function, right? So you get an input and you return the square of the number. Let's see what happens. So this is router 4. So when we go to router 4, we actually got the square of the number, right? That is what we are doing. Task 1 router 4 is doing a square. So this is very simple. This is how we actually keep adding routes. We keep doing things and keep adding functions. So what could you have been ideally done is like return a function const square equals to take a number input and you return, or like just take an input and return whatever, like num into num. So you could have simply done this and you could have called square of. Basically you are actually putting this thing in front of this function, right? You are basically allowing this function to be called by someone else using this piece of code. You are purifying the input and you are doing, like, you are sending out. So it will give us hopefully the same output. Yeah, it gives us the same output. Let's do a 201. Now we get the output. Now there is one more thing to it. We can actually add a bit, like one more layer in between, that is called the middleware. Now middleware is like a bit difficult concept to understand, but I'll try to keep it simple. So let's see if people have any doubts. Okay, no doubts. No.
Devendra, you can just continue. If there are any doubts that come up, I will just notify you.
Okay, sure. That would be great. So this is fine. So this is router 5, and what this router 5 will do, it will have an intermediary check. So we'll check if a number is num, if the input is a number or not. And if the input is not a number, we'll directly send it back to send back a response that is not a number. So we do a const. We'll do a check num. So the check num is the name of our middleware. And a middleware will have three things: request, response, and next. What is next? Next is basically the next function it has. So I'll actually tell you what it is. So this is a function, and what it will do the same thing. It will take this, it will take the input. What it will check if like the number is um, if num is a number or not. So if not is nan, so is nan basically checks if a string is a number or not, or if any entity in JavaScript is a number or not. So over here it's a string. So if num is nan, like is not a number, is not a number. So I'll do not, I'll remove this not. So if num is not a number, so what I'll do, I'll return a response. I'll return a response um, doing something like success is false. We send something success is false. Message. Please send number. Okay. Um, yeah. Otherwise, it will do all these things. So else it will do a next. So it will actually return the response. It's very important that you do a return so that like it breaks the flow. There are a few more intricacies with the return as well. I'm not going into that detail, but yeah, it's important that you return. I'll add return in front of everything. Yeah. So what it will do is it will go to next. Now let's put it as a middleware. Let's put this checknum function before router 5. So this is actually the router 5 function, but it will go through a filter of checknum. You can think of it as a filter. It will go through a filter of checknum. It will have all the things. It will have the input. What it will this filter will do, this filter will check that if the number is if num is not a number, it will directly send that please send a number. I don't want to carry out this function. I don't want to carry out this function, this router. Right? But if like this is a number, I would obviously want to go to the next function. What is the next function? The next function of checknum is this thing. Right? So that is the thing. Now let's see what happens. So this is router 5. I make a call to router 5 and I'll put a 201. I get the answer. Right? I get a 202. I get the answer. But what happens? If I give it an input of 2A2, so it gives me a success false and message please send the number. Right? And it's not at all carrying out this second thing, because what we are doing, we are returning it with this response. We don't want to carry out anything else, right? Because that is not a number. 2A2 is not a number. But if I talk about task 4, the task 4 will actually try to execute it and will break it over here. It will break it at 2. So that is 2A2. It will take it as just as 2 and it will square to 4 and send us the response, which of course we don't want, right? We want to have a filter that will only square it if it is a number. So it's saying that it's not a number. I don't want to square it. Go 22 and it works, right? uh, yeah. So this goes with the middleware. What is a middleware? And like middleware is actually used to filter out stuff in the between, so that like things can keep flowing smoothly. For example, this request dot function, I would not want to check that this is a uh, this request dot query is a number or not. I do want to check it for like 10 other functions, that if this request dot query is a number or not. So I would just make a checknum middleware, and I will put it to every route that is actually trying to do it. For example, if I want to do something for the something same for addition as well, or like not squaring, probably some unary operation, that is negation. Okay. So if I want to negate something, let's name it 6, and it will take a response request. So if I want to negate something, I would of course not want to negate a uh, I would not want to negate a string, right? So what I'll do, I'll take a number and I'll do a minus now. I'll respond with a minus. Yeah. I'll respond with a minus sign. And I want to put this check that this is a number or not again into this negation function as well. So let's see what happens when I go to router 6. So I get minus 22, but when I do a 22A, I'll get a pre-sender number because of course it's some number, right? Uh, so I would actually want to create these kind of middleware every time we have some intermediary checks uh, while before running these routers, so that we can actually handle them smoothly. I think this is for task 1. Let me just push it out. Let's try and comment it. And it's good to go. Now, there might be a question, right? That you have sent me the code, but like, how do I use it? Right? How do I actually use it? So let me show you that as well. So what I'll do is, like, I'll delete all the code I've written. So probably like all the code I've written got deleted. What I'll do, I'll I'll do a and I deleted everything. So this folder doesn't exist. So this folder doesn't exist. So what do I do? You go to my GitHub, of course. I think you have got the link. You fork it out because it's mine. I can't. So after you fork it out, you press this code. You'll get the link over here. Copy it. Get to this. Do a git clone. Git clone with the URL, and you do have it. You do have the code. Now, how do I set it up? Uh, yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, Devanda, there is one question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Shabona is asking, is next an inbuilt function? And one more question, I saw you used a return keyword before the response function. Is it mandatory to get a response in the output?
Is it mandatory to get the response in the output?
Yes.
So
And
basically, this
is
response.
next an inbuilt function?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I would say yes. This next is an inbuilt function. So you can use it. It's not inbuilt with Node, but it's inbuilt with Express. So this request and response and next, everything, each and everything is inbuilt in Express. While you are using Express, you will get everything in the documentation as well. And while you are using Express, it will get these functions without actually explicitly writing these functions. So that is actually the what to say, the advantage of using a framework or a package is that you actually get a lot of things that is already inbuilt, and you don't need to write them on your own. So you just write request response, and you are good to go with sending a request and taking a response. Right? So yeah, and in terms of the other question, that is um, response.json. So this is actually the response you'll be sending out. So you need to return it so that like your function stops working as soon as it hits the response, right? So what happens is, when do you stop a function? When does a function stop? When you actually return something, right? So you would actually want to stop the function as soon as you return a response. So I'm returning a response.json. So for that, I would want to actually stop the function at this line, and I don't want to like move to more lines below, right? That would actually, so in terms of mandatory, return is not mandatory, but it might create some ineffective cases or unrequired cases if we don't actually return the response.json. So it's a good practice to actually return response every time we are sending a response. Right? I think that is clear, right?
Shabona, a quick response in the chat. Is it clear?
So yeah, you
I think
can
it is
like just,
clear. Yes, it's clear. And Devanda, we have a little bit of time left, so I think that
yeah,
you
that
have
is
to
that
start
that is
wrapping
what
up.
I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
wrapping it up. So basically, I think we are done with the most of the code, right? And I think we won't be getting into database and stuff for today. But yeah, I think like this is most of it. How to write a route and how to actually include middlewares and everything. I was just showing them that how to actually use my code, right? I have already a code given in GitHub. So I've cloned it up. I've got into the folder, and now actually how to use it, because I do a npm run start, nothing will happen, right? Because it's not set up yet. So how to set up? It's very simple. Once you have the code in your folder, do a npm install or npm I. When you hit an npm I, npm will take all the pain to actually set up everything for you. Now this is good to go. This project is good to go, and I can run the server. Let's see how can I run the server. Npm run start, and I have the server, and I have all the routes. I have like all the routes. I have route 6, route 5, route 2, whatever. I have all the routes. So it's very important that you also use Git and GitHub, because of course you might lose your code at times, and you will want to actually store your code somewhere so that you can keep track of it. And npm actually does a great job at also setting up the dependencies and everything. You saw that like I deleted the folder, but still I have the code running without any problem. Yeah, okay, so that is I think from my side today. uh, we'll just wrap up. So yeah, we actually wrapped it up. Let's get to the thank you slide and just
Okay, so this brings us to the end of our session. Thank you so much, Devanda.
yeah,
Now, I think you are ready to take some questions. So, if you guys
sure.
have any doubts, please just fire away. And remember, please, there are no stupid questions.
Yeah, yeah,
So, if
please.
you have anything at all, please do ask in the chat box. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
in the comment section. Let's just wait for 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, Devanda.
yeah. A few things to note is basically that this is a server with routes is nothing more than a function. Each function has a name. Over here, it's named as route. So the so you call the route, you give it a request, you get a response. And of course, like there are a lot of good videos and tutorials. I can like add links to them in the WhatsApp group so that like you can get a hold of it and you can understand like in detail what each of
Yeah.
them do. But
Yes,
this
that
was
would
actually
be
a good thing.
extremely helpful.
Yeah, yeah. But I think for now, like this is a good overview of like what it is. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so let me talk about like Mentro as well. What we do at Mentro is we have professionals from industry and like a lot of people actually working at Amazon, Microsoft, Google. And what you can do is like you can go there and you can start sessions with them. You can start one-on-one sessions with them. You can talk to them and like understand like what is actually required in the industry. So a lot of people don't know how to start with, how to build your resume, how to like go for interviews. So we have this platform called Mentro where you actually have industry professionals who are actually working at top tech companies like Amazon, Microsoft, um, like Google, and all these places. And people can actually get in there and start one-on-one sessions with them, fix your resume, take mock interviews, and get ready for like your internships. Because as I said, like I also personally got started with internships, and it's very important that like you start with internships and like get hold of the subject so that like you can actually be like you can actually get started in this professional career because learning projects can teach you so much, right? So it's very important
Right.
that you get started.
Of course. Devanda, I had it's more of a personal question regarding Mentro, that you mentioned that we can just do anything, so everything is free of cost, right?
So in terms of like the resources and job updates which you'll get, they are of course
Yeah.
free of cost. We also have resources across all domains. Like if you want to learn Node.js, you can of course download Mentro, go to the backend section and grab a look at the resources we have for Node.js. And similarly for front end, for back end, for machine learning, we have quite a lot of extensive resources actually curated in like order to make sure that people can actually go through them one by one and like learn the subject because it's very difficult to actually learn from the internet because there are a lot going on, right? There are a lot of resources you don't know which is the right one to choose, which one to actually watch and stuff. So Mentor actually provides a curated list of resources as well. And in
Right.
terms
Right.
of like talking to mentors, obviously like a person with Google, when you are going to talk with a person with Google, working at Google, of course that's not going to be like like free, right? Because they have their time and it's very difficult to actually manage time on that.
Of course. Of course.
But yeah, of course you can like just pay a small amount to actually make sure that you schedule a call with him and like you talk to him, right? Because of
Right.
course like it depends, right? You can actually talk to professionals and they can give you better insights about what a HR looks for in a resume, how to actually go for interviews, how to actually prepare for your next job. So it's very important that you talk to them and you figure out what is good for you because everyone has things specific to them, right? There are some things that
Right.
are good for you that won't be like that won't fit me, and some things that will fit me won't fit you, right? So
Of course.
that is there.
Right. So I don't think we have any more questions in the comment section. So I think we can consider it a wrap. And I also want to mention to our audience that tomorrow is a buffer day for everyone so that you guys can revise all the concepts that you have learned in this week for the past 2 to 3 days. And there will also be a brainstorming session where project ideas will be discussed and project leads will be announced, and it will be held on Zoom. We will share the link later in either in Discord or in WhatsApp, whichever one is preferable for you guys. And yes, that's that. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until then, until next time. So we officially we have completed our session. Uh, if you guys want, you can stay back. And now it is the unofficial part where we can like chat with Devanda, and I will also provide a link to the StreamYard. If you guys want, you can personally come and ask your doubts over here. I hope Devanda is like free for some time.
Yeah, yeah, I'm free till 9, I think.
Yeah, so Devanda is free for the next 17 minutes. So yeah, if you guys have any doubts, you can personally come and ask in StreamYard, or you can ask it in the chat box. Officially, the session is over. Okay, Devanda, I just had you were an SD at. I just keep forgetting the name of the
Trell,
company.
Trell. Yeah,
Yeah.
Trell. Yeah, I think.
Okay, so like, how was the interview process like? Like, how did you apply for it, and what was the things?
Yeah, so what I would say is like getting into product-based companies is pretty difficult with your resume because um, with just your resume because like when you actually share your resume on the job sites, it becomes very difficult for HRs
Right,
to actually pass them, and like there are a lot of things in between, right?
right,
So I actually went there through a referral. Um, so one of my friends used to work over there. So I told him that if you have any connections, like let me know. Okay. So he got me like he told that he got me contacted with HR, and she took it forward. But what I would say is like starting off uh, starting off it's very difficult to even think of actually getting into interviews because um, you think that like once you get an interview it's done, right? But it's not that, like you are not done once you get an interview scheduled because the main test and the main thing starts with the interview, right? So it's not just resume shortlisting because of course I like most of my internships which I've done or like most other places where I have worked at, like, I've gone there through referral. So there are two things, like when will someone actually give you a referral? You need to prove your worth, right? You need to work with them, you need to make them understand that you are worth the referral, right?
right,
So that is very important that you are worth the reference and you actually are able to showcase that you are someone who is like able to work there, right? So uh, that is difficult in itself, if I say, because of course, like pinging random people on LinkedIn doesn't help a lot, as I understand. But yeah,
right.
of course, it helps. It helps, of course, but
Okay,
doesn't help always.
right.
Uh, so yeah, so uh, still I got through referral. Like you need to go through a good interview process, right? So I had to go through like 3 rounds of interview. Um,
Right.
one HR round, one actually algorithmic coding round, and one was like uh, it was a machine coding round kind of thing where I was given a problem, and I was given a problem, and I had to like sit there at the interview for around 4 hours and actually code out the solution in front of them. So that problem is not a DS algo problem. Probably like they gave me a big question, right? You need to actually write a server where you need to run a server where probably there is some input and you need to actually split it according to the details of the user or something like that. That was a real world based problem, right? Which had like one or two routes. Okay.
So
So
something on the lines of system design.
not exactly system design, but I would say it's more of like uh, yeah, I would say it's more of like writing an actual code, right? Writing an actual software. It was on the side of writing an actual software and not just like coding BSc. So that was basically the first round. I had to sit like for around 3.5 hours, and I had to actually. They had given me like this should be the database schema. This should be like this is what we require. These are the routes that you need to give us, and I actually had to structure the code and write it such that like we can actually like the full thing works, right? So that was a first real world project that I got. You can say it's a project you need to complete it in 4 hours. And the second interview was a data structure and algorithm interview. Now, what happened in the data structure and algorithm interview? My data structure and algorithm interview went for around 2 hours, so it was pretty long. Uh, I was asked not to write any code. I was asked not to write any code because, of course, I've completed the first round where I had to write a lot of code. The second round was lot on algorithms. Okay, so I was given questions, like I was given probably 2 to 3 questions. No, I think 4 questions. I was given 4 questions, and we were basically discussing the solution. So that was not a lot about writing code. It was uh, like, like writing solution. Uh, so yeah, Girish is asking like were you allowed to refer Stack Overflow docs, whatever. Yeah, of course I was allowed to refer Stack Overflow docs because when I got into the interview, I didn't know anything what the question might be. So of course a developer cannot write code, like everything cannot be in the head, of course. So you need to actually refer to all those things, docs and Stack Overflow. Like internet was open for you, you can do whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, you need to do that in front of them because of course like Stack Overflow can help, but you need to know about the basics to understand them, right?
Of
Yeah,
course.
so that was the second round. The second round was mainly on data structures and algorithms, and I was just asked to like discuss solutions and give them solutions to it. So they were pretty, like I would say they were pretty decent level code chef questions. So some were riddles and stuff. So yeah, I feel like I did pretty well there as well. We ended up in like 1.5 hours, and then like there was an HR round, and we were good.
Okay.
No, actually, like because this wasn't once on site, it was actually uh, like um, it was actually remote, and like I'm still working remote. So yeah, so it was during the COVID.
Right. So the first interview round, that is the thing that scares me the most. Like we have to like code the
Actually,
entire.
it's not actually what scares you because if I talk about myself, what I did was I went through a specific set of preparation for that, right? So I
Okay.
knew that we were going to have this kind of interview where I will be asked to code a real world project, right? So
Right.
what I did for the preparation is um, yeah, I'm answering you like after some time, Girish. So what I did was with preparation is that like uh, I knew that they are going to ask me to write a server, right? So
Hmm.
what I did was I created a basic structure of a server on my computer to make sure
Right.
that I don't need to like because for now, like if you see now, I have written a lot of code for the server, right? Like on how to set up a server and like do the npm install and all those things.
Yes.
So
Yes, definitely.
I did that interview in Python. So I wrote the server in Flask. So what I did was like I already created a basic server, and I should have I was good to go once I like started writing functions because as I said like a route is not nothing more than a function, right? It's a
Hmm.
remote function. So
Yes.
I have set everything up. I was just writing functions, connecting databases, doing the task, thinking about the task, and then I didn't have to think much about the integration because I have already written a pre-written setup code to get started. And that was pretty fair. I asked him before starting the interview that can I use a pre-written set of code, and he was like fine because of course the question is not known to me, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so that's why I was allowed to also use a pre-written set of codes. But yeah, that is it. So in the meantime, I also appeared in like quite a few more interviews as well. So where I was uh, where we I also had to like code a coffee machine or something like that. Those kind of codes were also there. Yeah, those things are there. Those are kind of, as we say, is like um, machine coding rounds. What happens is machine coding rounds is you are tested with your uh, actual development skills and not DS algo coding skills, and it's becoming very popular among companies like Flipkart and all those things. Like they are doing this to make sure that you are just not judged on the basis of your DSS skills. So, so if you think that you have a bit less of DSS skills, please work around it. If you can do development, I think most of the companies today they are hiring at like a great pace.
Right. So, coming back to Girish's question, how do you
Yeah.
plan to manage trail after, like, when college reopens,
So
if
like
such a situation happens?
so probably I'll be continuing remote only because Trell has plans to open like very soon, like probably next month. But like uh, like I have plans and I have talked to them. So for now, I think I'll be able to continue. Uh, I'll be able to continue online. Like I'll be able to do it remote. Let's see what happens after college opens and what. I'll probably decide then.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that brings us to the end of the unofficial session also. Thank you very much, Devanda, for giving us your time.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It was great
if
talking to
any,
you guys as well. Yeah.
right. So that's that. Thank you so much. And
Mhm.
please, maybe we can like contact you for referrals and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so
Great.
much for the session. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.